Hello and welcome back to the Tech Blackboard, and this is part 10 of DP203 exam Q&A series. Today we will focus on questions based on Azure Storage, Azure SQL Database, Azure Synapse, Azure Datafactory and much more. So let's dive into 15 important questions on DP203 and learn something new today. And friends, for a complete course coverage, please do not miss to watch previous 9 parts where we have already covered 115 questions. Each question will make you understand important concept of DP203 and also get you Microsoft documentation. Not only that, as a bonus, you will get a free PDF file containing all the questions with answers discussed in all the 9 previous parts, and that too for absolutely free. And this will surely help you in your further self-learning. Links to all the previous videos are available in the description box. And as far as this video goes, you can get a free PDF file containing all the 15 questions with answers. But for that, you have to tell me the correct answers for the question number 119, 123 and 130. Stick to the video and you will find all the answers to all these 3 questions in this video itself. And friends, if this video is time worthy for you and you gain some knowledge, please take a brief moment to appreciate us by liking and sharing this video and also subscribing to the channel. Press that bell icon to receive all the notification of our upcoming videos. So let's begin part 10 with question number 116. The question says that you are a data architect. The data engineering team needs to configure a synchronization of data between an on-premises Microsoft SQL Server database to Azure SQL database. Ad hoc and reporting queries are being overutilized on the on-premises production instance. The synchronization process must perform an initial data synchronization to Azure SQL database with minimal downtime. The second thing it should perform is bidirectional data synchronization after initial synchronization. Now you need to implement this synchronization solution. Which synchronization method should you use? Your options are transactional replication, data migration assistant, backup and restore, SQL Server agent job, or the last one is Azure SQL data sync. And the correct answer for this question is option E, Azure SQL data sync. So what exactly is SQL Data Sync for Azure? As Microsoft says that SQL Data Sync is a service built on Azure SQL database that lets you synchronize the data you select bidirectionally across multiple databases both on premises and in the cloud. You can read all about SQL Data Sync for Azure on this documentation. Now let's move on to question number 117. The question says that you have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure storage account. You plan to implement changes to a data storage solution that meets regulatory and compliance standards. Every day, Azure needs to identify and delete Blob that were not modified during last 100 days. And as a solution, you schedule a Azure Datafactory pipeline with delete activity. Does this meet the goal? The correct answer to this question is no. There are 2 more variations of the same question, so let me present that to you and then I will give you the correct explanation in question number 119. So let's check out one more variation. The question is exactly the same. However, this time the solution says that you apply an expired tag to the blobs in the storage account. Does this meet the goal? And the correct answer this time as well is no. So let's check out what is the correct solution, and that is presented in question number 119. Here you can see that the solution is you apply an Azure Blob Storage Lifecycle policy. Does this meet the goal? And the answer to this question is yes. And in case you are wondering what is Azure Blob Storage Lifecycle policy, then this is the Microsoft documentation that you should read. And here you can very well read Microsoft says that datasets have unique lifecycle. Early in the life cycle, people access data very often, but the need for access often drops drastically as data ages. Some data remains idle in cloud and is rarely accessed once stored. And please pay attention, the documentation says that some data sets expire days or months after creation, while other datasets are actively read and modified throughout their life cycle. And friends, in our question also, the need is to identify and delete the blobs that are not used for last 100 days. So that's why Azure Blob Storage Lifecycle Policy is the optimized way to do so. Now let's move on with question number 120. The question says that you have an Azure storage account and a data warehouse in Azure Synapse Analytics in the UK South region. You need to copy blob data from storage account to the data warehouse by using Azure DataFactory. The solution must meet the following requirement. The first one is ensure that the data remains in the UK South region all the times, and it should also minimize administrative efforts. Which type of integration runtime should you use? Your options are Azure Integration Runtime, Azure SSIS Integration Runtime, or Self-Hosted Integration Runtime. And the correct answer for this question is option A, Azure Integration Runtime. And a very good page to read all about the integration runtime in Azure DataFactory is this one. Here you can read that integration runtime is compute infrastructure used by Microsoft Azure DataFactory and Azure Synapse Pipeline to provide the following data integration capabilities across different network environments. The first one is data flow, then we have data movement, then we have activity dispatch, and then we have SSIS package execution. You can read all about these capabilities in this documentation. You can read more about each type of integration runtime here in this document. You can see that we have Azure, which is nothing but Azure Integration Runtime. Then we have self-hosted, and then we have Azure SSIS. You can also observe the capabilities for each type of integration runtime are also listed. And friends, just to add one more point, because the need of the question is also to minimize administrative efforts, that's why the perfect answer would be Azure Integration Runtime. Now let's do some questions based on Azure DataFactory. And here comes question number 121. The question says that you want to ingest data from SQL Server database hosted on an on-premises Windows server. What integration runtime is required for Azure DataFactory to ingest data from on-premises server? And your options are Azure Integration Runtime, Azure SSIS Integration Runtime, and the third one is Self-Hosted Integration Runtime. And the correct answer for this question is option C, Self-Hosted Integration Runtime. And friends, the reason is that Self-Hosted Integration Runtime can run copy activity between a cloud data store and a data store in a private network. Besides that, it can also dispatch transform activities against compute resources in an on-premises network or an Azure virtual network. That's the reason we have chosen self-hosted integration runtime as an answer to this question. Moving on with question number 122, and the question says that by default, how long are the Azure DataFactory diagnostics logs are retained for? Your options are 15 days, 30 days and 45 days. The correct answer for this question is option C, 45 days. Moving on with question number 123, the question says that you need to trigger an Azure DataFactory pipeline when a file arrives in an Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 container. Which resource provider should you enable? Your options are Microsoft.SQL, Microsoft.Automation, Microsoft.EventGrid, and Microsoft.EventHub. And the correct answer for this question is option C, Microsoft.EventGrid. To better understand this answer, let's talk about event-driven architecture, which is a common data integration pattern that involves production, detection, consumption, and reaction to events. Data integration scenarios often require DataFactory customers to trigger pipelines based on events happening in storage account, such as arrival or deletion of a file in Azure Blob Storage account. And also please understand that DataFactory natively integrates with Azure Data Event Grid, which lets you trigger pipelines on such events. And that's why we have chosen Microsoft Event Grid as the answer to this question. Now let's move on to a very interesting question. Question number 124. The question says that you have an Azure DataFactory instance that contains two pipelines named Pipeline 1 and Pipeline 2. Now the Pipeline 1 has activities shown in the following exhibit. And here in the Pipeline 1, you can see we have two activities. The first one is stored procedure. So we are executing a stored procedure named stored procedure 1. And then we have a set variable activity. Here you can see this red line which actually denotes failure. Moving on with the pipeline 2, which has the activities shown in the following exhibit. Here for the pipeline 2, you can see we have first activity as execute pipeline. So we have execute pipeline 1. And then again we have a set variable activity. But this time you can see this is denoted by this green color line, which means the successful run of the pipeline. Moving on, the question says that you execute pipeline 2 and stored procedure 1 in pipeline 1 fails. As I said, red means failure of the activity. So what is the status of the pipeline runs? Your options are pipeline 1 and pipeline 2 succeeded. The second option is pipeline 1 and pipeline 2 failed. The third option is pipeline 1 succeeded and pipeline 2 failed. The fourth option is pipeline 1 failed and pipeline 2 succeeded. And the correct answer for this question is option A, pipeline 1 and pipeline 2 succeeded. Now you might be wondering how come both the pipelines are succeeded when we can clearly see there is a failure here. So let me give you the justification. So friends, please understand activities are linked together via dependencies. I hope you can very well understand all these are activities like stored procedure, set variable or execute pipeline. So as I said, activities are linked via dependency. Now a dependency can have conditions like succeeded, failed, skipped or completed. Now you consider pipeline 1. Here you can see that if we have a pipeline with two activities where activity 2 has a failure dependency on activity 1, the pipeline will not fail just because the activity 1 has failed. If activity 1 fails and the activity 2 succeeds, the pipeline will still succeed. And just so you know, this scenario is treated as a try-catch block in DataFactory. I'm sure you must have used try-catch block in languages like Java or C#. Then also understand that the failure dependency means the pipeline reports success. What it means that we are handling the failure of the pipeline. Here you can see this is the pipeline failure, but we are handling it by some other activity. So eventually on a broad level, activity might fail, but the pipeline is not failing. Once again, to summarize, there can be multiple activities in a pipeline. Some of the activities can fail, but you can handle them using try-catch block. What it means is that activities can fail, but the pipeline in itself is not failing. I hope you understood why we have chosen pipeline 1 and pipeline 2 will succeed. Now let's move our focus from Azure Data Factory to Azure Synapse Analytics. Here comes question number 125. The question says that you are designing a financial transaction table in an Azure Synapse Analytics dedicated SQL pool. The table will have clustered column store index and will include the following columns. The first one is transaction type with 40 million rows per transaction type. The second one is customer segment with 4 million per customer segment. Then we have transaction month with 65 million rows per month. And then we have account type with 500 million per account type. Further, the question says that you have the following query requirements. The first one is analyst will most commonly analyze transactions for a given month. And then we have transaction analysis will typically summarize transactions by transaction type, customer segment and or account type. You need to recommend a partition strategy for the table to minimize query times. On which column should you recommend partitioning the table? And your options are customer segment, account type, transaction type, or transaction month. And the correct answer for this question is option D, transaction month. Coming to the question number 126, the question says that your company wants to route data rows to different streams based on matching condition. Which transformation in mapping data flow should you use? Your options are conditional split, select or lookup. The correct answer for this question is option A, conditional split. Now let me give you details on it. A conditional split transformation routes data rows to different streams based on matching condition, as we also read in the question. The conditional split is like a case decision structure in a programming language. And then we have select, not a correct option. And then we have lookup. Basically, lookup transformation is used to add reference data from another data source to your data flow. And with that, let's move on to question number 127. The question says that which transformation is used to load data in data store or compute resource. And your options are source, destination, sink or window. And the correct answer for this question is option C, sink. Looking at the explanation, so basically source and destination option A and B are not a valid option. Now let's look at the sync. So sync transformation allows you to choose a dataset definition for the destination output data. You can have as many sync transformation as your data flow requires. And then we have Windows, which is an incorrect option. So basically Windows transformation is where you will define window-based aggregation of columns in your data stream. Now let's jump on to question number 128. The question says that a company has a real-time data analysis solution that is hosted on Microsoft Azure. The solution uses Azure Event Hub to ingest data and an Azure Stream Analytics Cloud job to analyze the data. Further, the question says the cloud job is configured to use 120 streaming units and you need to optimize performance for the Azure Stream Analytics job. Which two actions should you perform? Each correct answer presents part of the solution, and please note that each correct selection is worth 1 point. Your options are implement event ordering. The second one is implement Azure Stream Analytics user-defined functions. And then we have implement query parallelization by partitioning the data output. Post that, we have scale the SU count for the job up, and then we have scale the SU count for the job down. The last option given is implement query parallelization by partitioning the data input. And the correct answer for this question is option D and option F. Now let's move on with question number 129. The question says that by default, how are the corrupt records dealt using spark.read.json? And your options are they appear in a column called corrupt record. The second option is they get deleted automatically. And the third option is they throw an exception and exit read operation. And the correct answer to this question is option A, that they appear in a column called _corrupt_record. And now on your screen is question number 130, which is the last question for part 10 of DP203 exam Q&A series. Let's read the question. The question says that how do you specify parameters when reading the data? And your options are using dot option during the read allows you to pass key value pairs specifying aspects of your read. The second option is using dot parameter during the read allows you to pass key value pairs specifying aspects of your read. The third option is using dot keys during the read allows you to pass key value pair specifying aspects of your read. And the correct answer to this question is option A. Hope you enjoyed today's session with 15 questions. Friends, it's super important for us to understand your feedback. Please share your questions, doubts, and most importantly, what do you want to see on the Tech Blackboard channel? You can send us your inputs in the YouTube comment section, on Facebook, Instagram Messenger, or simply tweet us. And now you can also email us on connectus@thetechblackboard.com. Thank you so much for learning with us. I will see you in the next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.
If this video has added any value in your learning, a like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video in your family and friends to spread and expand their learning. Your comments and feedback give me a chance to interact with you, and I look forward for them. We will meet again in our next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.